Hi guys, welcome to another episode of the Grapplers Academy. We're back looking at some side control escapes. Side's got some really nice details today that he's going to show us to level up your percentage on escaping.
Yeah, usually side control escapes, they're kind of like traditionally taught where you shrimp out, get that shin back across, and then start getting your frames in from there. But as you get more experienced players, they kind of know how to shut the distance down, remove the frames, and sort of work around those sort of escapes that are traditionally taught, which great for the start of your journey, but as you start to progress you need to kind of evolve the way that you're starting to work these escapes and using less energetic movements to then save your energy for when you get further into the escape where you're going to maybe need a bit more energy to escape, and it's a lot less big movements and more subtle movements to get into the gaps that are already there rather than trying to create some bigger ones.
So old man black belt style of efficiency.
Pretty much, yeah. So I'll do it from this side here first. So starting off here, Bond's got like a really good far underhook on me. He's got the crossface in. His knees are at my hips and it's just sort of blocking any movement. So if I was to start shrimping my hips away, Bond's going to follow that gap straight away and sort of take that gap away from me. So first thing I want to do is get this inside arm free so I can get my elbow across his hips and start creating some frames. Now normally when you look at this you're kind of looking at the big bridge and pulling the elbow in, but with big players they know how to ride that out and it's going to tie you out more than it is going to create the gap that you need to get your elbow and your frames back in. So what I'm going to do with this arm is I'm going to take hold of the shoulder, I'm going to pull it down towards my hip. Now my elbow's still in Bond's hip here, so I've not quite got my frame in there. So all I'm going to do now is plant my feet and do a small turn towards him and tucking this elbow on the inside. So I'm going to turn and pull my elbow inside the hip. Now this now gives me the option to go straight to framing on there or keeping my elbow nice and tucked in. Now the next one is getting this frame across the throat. Again, rather than doing the big bridge where you kind of risk getting head and armed, and again using a lot of energy, we're just going to use a small bump towards them and my hand I'm going to sort of go with like the knuckles on the fingers. I'm going to try and go across the throat, whereas if I do it from here you can bury his head and sort of hide it away. So I'm just going to get my hand in place and then just do a small little bump in towards him and slide it underneath the chin. So I'm going to go through and get that underneath there and come underneath, and I'm just reinforcing the grip that I've got on the shoulder. I'm pulling the shoulder in towards my chest. Again, this helps minimise and reduce the pressure that's being put on you from the crossface. Next thing I'm going to do is, rather than shrinking my hips out to get this inside frame across the hips with my shin, I'm going to put my knee onto the hip, and all I'm going to do is just do a slight turn in towards it. Now if Bond tries taking that gap away while I'm doing this, it gives me a lot more room and time to get my shin across, and now I can get that elbow-knee connection to then start really trying to escape, creating space and going from there. Again, these aren't big details, but there's some small details that you can add in to your overall side control escape that will massively increase your percentage of escaping and staying safe in that pretty miserable position.
I think in terms of what's going on there with the movements, it's the similar things to what most people learn in terms of the basics.
Yeah.
But it's trimming the fat off and there's a lot less space, an opportunity for the guy on the top to start closing the distance back in when you're trying to open up those big gaps to get the hips away to bring the knee in. What that thing on the shoulder does well actually as well, feeling it from the top, is turns my spine a little bit and stops me from being able to apply that pressure down and following. So like we talked about before, when we can manipulate both ends of the spine, it's a lot more difficult for the person to move because you're controlling the basic centre of mass and where they can manipulate the body position from.
No, definitely, and this is sort of like an escape or sort of precautions to take when you're in a bad side control, but to really maximise your side control escapes and defence is, as soon as you're at a point where your opponent is past your guard or getting beyond that point where you can't recover your guard, that's when you should be defending side control. You don't want to let it sort of start being defended once your opponent's settled in. So this is kind of like a worst case scenario, getting out of this position, but ideally you should be defending side control once you realise that you can't recover your guard back and
you need to start thinking about the preemptive escape rather than escaping from the bad situation once it gets there.
It's like the classic situation of when you say to your coach, how do I get out of a triangle? And they say, don't get stuck in it.
Yeah.
What that really means is, if you've got caught in it, you've probably done a couple of things wrong in the setup. And like Si's saying, those early warning signals that you're seeing as the person's transitioning from one move to the next, you need to start thinking about what are your fundamentals, usually frames, to create the space and start making enough room for you to mount a defence. But this is the difference between when you see between white belts and blue belts and purple belts. Everything's just a little bit tighter, and this is a great example of how you can make your defensive game a lot tighter from a concept point of view that just expands through the whole rest of jiu-jitsu.
That's it. Get your fundamentals nailed, and basically, as you start to get more experience, as Bond said, trim the fat. So take away the unnecessary parts, and that is basically what the jiu-jitsu journey is. You start off with a lot of stuff and a lot of movement, and then you sort of compress it down into your style, your game, with only the essentials in there, and adapting things to your body type as well. Like, no two people are going to perform the same technique exactly the same. There's going to be some variances, so start to sort of look at how to add your own flair to them whilst maintaining the core foundation elements of them.
Cool.
Bonafide PT, coached by Si, with the Grapplers Academy across all platforms. See you next week.